In our larger Catechism reading this morning, we come to question number 106, which continues our meditation on the first commandment. This question asks, what are we specially taught by these words, "before me," in the first commandment? The answer is that these words, "before me," or "before my face," in the first commandment, teach us that God, who seeth all things, taketh special notice of, and is much displeased with, the sin of having any other God. That so it may be an argument to dissuade from it, and to aggravate it as a most impudent provocation, as also to persuade us to do as in His sight whatever we do in His service. The commandment teaches us not to have any other gods before me. That doesn't mean that you should have a variety of other gods. God just has to be the first one in the pecking order, but none at all. And what is more, we should not even have any gods before God, in the sense that all of life is lived before His face. He sees everything, and there is nothing that is obscure or dark or hidden from God. We live before the face of God. You know, it is one of the marks of the unbelieving heart that they say to themselves that God doesn't see. I can go ahead and do as I please or do what I want because God is in the heavens. He's way up there, and He cannot see or understand or care about me and what I do. And so the unbelieving heart, as it were, puts a shield between earth and heaven and says, I live in a neutral zone where I am free from the influence of God. God cannot see or understand. And so they seek to escape God's notice. This commandment, right at the very start, reminds us that we live before God. He sees us thoroughly, completely, not only our outward behaviors as though He is an objective observer of what we do, but also He sees that which is within us. Our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, our passions, all of these things are lived before God. He sees us inside and out. There's nothing hidden from the face of God. And so for all men, this ought to be, on the one hand, a word of fear and of judgment to them, in that there is nothing that they can do that escapes the notice of God. Not only in outward behaviors out in public, but also in private behaviors, also within the attitudes of the heart. We all stand before God. And so it ought to challenge the unbeliever to turn from his idolatry and sin, and to yield his life in obedience to the true God who sees all things. At the same time, it is an encouragement for the believer. It encourages us to know that God does see and understand and know what we are going through. I think of the story in the book of Genesis where Hagar has left Sarah's service and has wandered off into the wilderness on her own. She is depressed and she feels abandoned and she is about to die in the wilderness. God appears to her and shows this woman, this slave woman, this Egyptian woman, that He sees and understands her and will provide for her and for her son. And so at the end of this visit from God to her in the form of an angel, she says, God sees me. And she derives some comfort from that. God sees me. In all my weakness, in all my obscurity, in all my troubles, they're not hidden from the Lord. He sees me. And He comes with a word of comfort and encouragement for us. So in these words, where we are reminded that we are to have no other gods before me, before the Lord, it reminds us that we do live before the Lord, and as we have Him as our God, He sees us, and He brings us His blessing and His encouragement, His help. All that we do is done in His sight when it's done for His glory, and He will bless it.